Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife. Dr. Ellen here, the Midlife Whisperer. Thank you so much for joining. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you have listened to shows before, thank you so much for tuning in. We've got folks from the US, the UK, Netherlands, Japan, Australia, Colombia, and Korea. So all over the world. And our guests today are from Australia and South Africa. So we are really a global family of midlifers here. And today's show is going to be all about getting courageous, changing your course, and finding your passion and purpose. So we are going to inspire you and hopefully get you a little unstuck, because I find that is such a big issue with women at midlife. And so I'm going to give you some great tips to help you have some adventures, get in action, and also amplify joy, which is, I think, my absolute favorite emotion. Joy is like this inner happiness. You know, when you feel inside, you feel good about yourself, your life, kind of creeps up on you. And I'm always so interested in so many midlife women really struggle with it. So I'm going to give you some tips around having more joy in your life. But I want to ask you a question. What are you focusing on? So now you're listening to the show, which is great because this is real upbeat, but think about, the last couple hours, the last few days or weeks. What have you been focusing on? Everything that is going wrong in the world and things that are difficult in your life, are you focusing on the good things in your life and the good things in the world, the people that you love, the things that you love to do? This is such an important question. And it's something that I constantly tune in and ask myself, what am I focusing in on today? When I get up in the morning, I do a little gratitude journal and talk, really write down what would make today awesome. Because as Tony Robbins says, where focus goes, energy flows. I'll say that again. Where focus goes, energy flows. And we are living in times where there's a lot of dark energy out there, and it's so easy to get sucked into the media and the news. And I'm not saying that you should totally put your head in the sand and ignore what's going on in the world, but I like to think about sort of having like a brick wall and peering over, knowing what's going on, but then really focusing on keeping my joy, my vibration super high. For me, it's been really important. If you've been listening to me, I am a breast cancer patient. So done with surgery, radiation, now getting some chemical agents for the next year, which are going really well. Not doing chemo, but doing something called Herceptin. But it's so important for all of us to really get our joy on. I think we need to focus on joy now more than ever, because joy is a bomb. So it's the bomb as well. So, if you are struggling and suffering, you got to find time for joy. And I hear a lot of, midlife women, they start to feel joy and, they either feel guilty because they're doing something just for them, or this is really interesting, that something that I've discovered working with clients, there's often some fear around experiencing joy, because joy, and as we're going to talk today, we're going to talk a little bit about sailing and being on the edge, like when you're about to capsize. But joy is this energy that can really force you outside your comfort zone. You can feel overwhelmed with positive emotion, but there's this element of kind of uncertainty there. There's a little edginess to joy. And I think a lot of people, particularly midlife women, are playing it so safe, not leaning into any uncertainty, that they kind of put the kibosh on joy. If that sounds familiar, I'd love to know. You can always reach out to me at themidlifewhisperer.com. But I find that so much with my clients. And so it's so important. I'm going to give you some hints on amplifying joy, because it's a bomb. It's healing. It is a creative energy. All of us are creative beings, whether you are a writer or you craft or you cook or you play with your grandkids. We're all creative beings, and joy is such a creative energy. And it also uplifts our consciousness. So if you're feeling, guilty about being joyful in your life and putting yourself first, well, you feeling sad and frustrated and angry, any of those things doesn't lift the consciousness of others or the planet. So it uplifts your conscious. It gives you more energy to help others and help yourself. So here are some tips. First of all, I do this with all my clients. Make a list of what makes you joyful. What do you love to do? And this could be big things, small things. For me, one of my favorite things to do is I walk barefoot out along my property. I live on a gorgeous island and we have just planted amazing flowers. The previous owner was a florist, and then we planted even more flowers, and we've got these insane sunflowers with the bees and the birds. And I just walk around with my cup of tea in the morning. Lately, I've been taking long morning walks because it's hot, with my dog, Rosie, who is a black border collie. So she appreciates that. But walking is something that always brings me joy. I have been walking certainly since I've been a toddler, but having a walking practice and, unplugging and watching nature. So make a list. What brings you joy? Think about music. Music is an awesome way to shift into a joyful place, or talking to a good friend, thinking about maybe, hula hooping or dancing. Think about what brings you joy. So make that list. And then when you start to feel frustrated or angry or sad, even, take out your list and do something on your list. Maybe take yourself for that 10-minute walk, or listen to some upbeat music that makes you feel joyful, or dance like nobody's watching around the living room. Call a good friend, play with your fur baby, do a puzzle, craft or color, do things that make you joyful every single day. And I promise you that will be transformative. That focus shift where you are focusing on what brings you joy, what uplifts you, and then making an intentional desire to bring joyful things into your everyday. And then finally, look to your childhood. And I'm super excited. One of our guests today is going to be talking about her adventures with sailing. And I went sailing, I grew up sailing, and I haven't sailed in decades. And I went sailing about 2 weeks ago, and my joy barometer was off the charts. My fear barometer was up there too, because it was really, really windy. And I took the helm and I remembered how to do it, but it's so important. And one final thing is play with something called your destination vibration. It's something I write about in my book, Rock Your Midlife. But all you need to do is just visualize for like 5-10 minutes every day, preferably before you go to bed in the morning and when you wake up, a time in your life where you were joyful and happy. So really think about, what were you doing? How did you feel? Who was there? Use all your emotions, visualize it using all your senses, and doing that actually will attract more joy into your life. So those are some tips. Just make a list, pull your list out, bring joy into your day every single day, and then also find your destination vibration. And now we are going to talk about exercise and movement, something that brings me so much joy, that is so much fun, with one of my favorite guests. She is Liz Grantham, and she is from a company called the Optimal.me. If you haven't checked them out, they are a sponsor of our show. It is a membership website for the midlifer who wants to feel younger, stay active, independent, energetic, without pain or injury, and feel confident that this phase of your life is the best phase yet. It's also filled with wonderful articles about things. Everything I saw went on gray hair the other day. I was like, right on. And there's wonderful recipes. There's an article about the blue zone. I know you guys are thinking about moving to the blue zone. There's great information about nutrition, wellness, and certainly movement, because, as we age, our joints, get some wear and tear. I was a runner for years, and I've always been an athlete, and I'm loving just really strengthening my joints and moving my body in all directions. We move so much in the sagittal back and forth plane, especially if you're walking, but it helps you move in all directions. So check them out. Your first 30 days are absolutely free. It's the Optimal.me, and it is just such a great site for the midlifer who wants to really make their golden years amazing. So let me tell you a little about Liz. She has over 30 years experience in marketing and advertising, providing innovative, integrative, thoughtful solutions for multiple Fortune 500 clients. Her love of a challenge and making big things happen, together with a need to manage the stress that comes along with running a business, led her to her joyful journey to what has become the optimal.me. The combination of hard work, experience, and endless curiosity, together with the need to not only survive, but thrive as she gets older, led her to create the optimal.me. So for Liz, the joy of finding long-term solutions to feel better and be excited about what's ahead is something worth sharing. And that's exactly what she's going to do now. She's going to tell us all about why we should be walking. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife, Liz.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be back with you.
Always a pleasure. I'm a little envious. You're in the southern hemisphere, so it's cool down there. She's wearing cashmere.
With all, I know it's cold. With all those fires raging and extreme temperatures around the northern hemisphere, I must say, I think that it's quite a difficult time for many people that are, they talk about older people, but I do think about women that are in menopause, because living in that heat must also be totally extreme. So yeah, just thinking of everybody that's cooking out there.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best hints I heard from someone who is a menopause expert is take a spray bottle and put lemon juice in it, lemon essential oils or lemon juice with some water, and spritz it on yourself. So let's talk about walking, because walking is a fabulous exercise. It's something, if it is hot where you are, you can do it first thing in the morning. What are the benefits of walking, particularly for midlifers?
So I think, like everything, walking, like any movement, walking is good for you. So the big things about movement is that it's less hard on your body, obviously, than running. It has multiple benefits, not only physical benefits. Of course, it's good for your bones. So for anybody that's kind of losing bone density, and really most of us in midlife are losing bone density, good, fast, solid walking is very good for your bone density. I think it's excellent cardio exercise, so it's going to help reduce your risk of heart disease, etc. Walking is extraordinarily brilliant for stress. It is mindfulness in action, really, walking. So I think that being out in nature, as we know, also helps you in terms of depression or anxiety. So walking is very holistic in terms of giving you all of the benefits of extraordinary high impact exercise. And outside of real, getting a very tight butt and a very strong core, you're going to strengthen your body, but you're not necessarily going to become all sculpted and extraordinary from walking, depending on the extent and the level at which you walk. So I think walking is good for everything, and it gives you a real sense of well-being, I think. And you're less likely to get injured walking than you are doing a lot of other things.
Yeah, plus it's free and easy, and everybody knows how to do it. You don't need any equipment other than some shoes. I like to go barefoot myself. Plus, it's also really good for brain health. There's so much research, not just depression, but even things like dementia, really, that shows when you're walking, when you're moving your body, your heart's beating, you're getting blood flow and nutrients to every part of your body. So can you get in shape just by walking?
I definitely think a lot of people get in shape just from walking. And again, we all are unique and different. I think one of the core philosophies of the Optimal Me is that everybody has a unique body, a unique physiology, unique injury history, etc., etc. So how one incorporates walking, it depends on so many things, right? And what you want to get out of it. So for some people, walking is a real, this is part of their cardio in the week. They will, I have 3 different walking partners. I don't like walking alone, and nothing, I'm just not going if I'm going by myself. For me, it's really a time where I can sort of have community. So I have a walking partner who is fiercely fit, and we walk at such a pace that I'm almost jogging, and she doesn't let up a hill, up here, and we're checking what our pace is, and go. And then I have a mid-tempo walking partner. We do lots of hills and stairs and up and down, but much slower. And I recently joined a group of women who all walk. They get together on weekends and they walk. And some walk fast at the front, some walk slowly at the back. But they sort of gather in the middle of the walk, and people move around and have different conversations about different things. And for many, it's survival. Walking for them is actually survival on a number of levels. And a lot of it is mental. A lot of it is about community. A lot of it is about finding joy, having different conversations with each other. And they know that it's good for them. They've got their furry friends along some. And so I think that walking is a complete exercise for us in midlife.
And I love the idea of doing it with friends, because when I'm working with people, how do you stay motivated, and having an accountability buddy? I tell a lot of people, get a dog. So I have to walk every day, because if I don't walk, my dog will start to bark incessantly to go out and do something, unless it's too hot. But that's such a great idea, to walk with groups of women. And I love what you said about it's preservation, right? I mean, I know, like with my cancer diagnosis, radiation, I sailed through it because I walked every single day. And the research really shows that people who are fitter are going to weather whatever happens to you so much better if they are in shape.
And I also think walking addresses or can work for anybody, right? So if you are like you used to be, the mad fitness person who was like, go, 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 everything was a challenge. If it wasn't hard and fast, you weren't doing the job. You can walk really fast. There's all kinds of walking. There's this wonderful Nordic walking with poles. Sometimes you see people out there with poles. And there's new research out showing that that's not only about your lower body, it's also about your upper body. So you're getting kind of a much more holistic workout if you really are wanting to do something harder. You can walk long and fast if that's what you're up to. So, people are training to do the Camino Trail or to do big hikes. It can give you an objective. And then there's some people that just are going to walk around their neighborhood regularly because it's the exercise that suits them. And I think you can start out slowly and be very mindful in your walking. As in midlife, the quickest way to lose 10 kilos and look 10 years younger is to work on your posture. And yes, there you go, up we go. And if when you're walking, you walk in a way where you're mindful of your posture, and there are all these things that one can do and incorporate into walking that really can make it exceptional, whether you're in recovery from illness. You don't have to always start out going very far. You can be going a few times a day around the block. Less, more often, with all movement is really in midlife the answer, and what research is showing us works best. So I think finding a walking partner, number one, would be, my first thing. Even if you don't have the greatest shoes, find someone to walk with, because it is joy. It's part of finding your joy, and it gets you out of a stuck mindset. When you are changing your environment, and especially, even if you're walking around a city suburb, you are still outdoors. You're still seeing different things. You're still being stimulated by beautiful window displays, or by the, trees and plants, or other people's animals, or somebody's gorgeous outfit, or a couple who looks really happy walking along. You get outside of yourself when you walk. And I think women have been walking for centuries, right? It's not a new thing. I mean, a lot of people thought that the pandemic kind of got people walking, but even, in the greatest literature, women have been walking forever. And I think that it's part of us. I think that as women in midlife, we need each other. We need people to talk to about what we're going through and experiencing. We need people to pick us up, or we need to pick somebody else up along the way, or just to have some fun. And I think that walking can really help all of us achieve those things.
Yeah, great, Hanson. I love the idea of training. My brother is actually walking the Appalachian Trail. He just retired, and he is walking the whole in bits and pieces. And I look at his adventures, and I'm just like, wow, it's a lot, but it's so great to go with girlfriends and to make it social. I also tell people, as a motivation, maybe listen to a really great book on tape, although I do like to have nothing a lot, and I love this idea of being very mindful, even in cities, there's nature, there's always plants and squirrels and birds and all kinds of things. So how long do you feel like it takes to transform your body? So if someone's listening going, gosh, I've been like on the shelf, I should join a gym. What do I do? And of course, join the optimal.me, because it's really a great site. But if someone wants to maybe join your site and also walk, how long would it take if someone's kind of a couch potato, hasn't done much, to get in shape?
So, I think that, again, everyone's unique. So even a couch potato that has a good cellular memory of exercise from when they were younger will probably be able to walk a lot faster than someone who's maybe been ill and is trying to, get through recovery and get back to optimal health and being able to move well. So I think, anything, number one, is better than nothing, and people will go at different paces depending on where you're at. But I mean, I like to, I certainly, look, I'm quite fit, and I don't do a huge amount of very aggressive cardio exercise, but I do 3 times a week, an hour at least, sometimes longer. But I think for someone who's starting out, I would say, even if you're going for a 15-minute or 10-minute walk around your block, and you're doing that every day if you can, and then, you start working up to a longer, faster walk. I have a friend who was decided that she was going to start doing 10,000 steps a day a few years back. And she was, she was fairly overweight, and she had not done exercise at all. And she lost enormous amounts of weight and got very fit fairly quickly. But she was completely fanatical about every day, whether she walked or was on her treadmill, she did 10,000 steps, and as fast as she could. I don't know, for me, that wouldn't be pleasurable. So that wouldn't be my choice. So I think, I mean, Ellen, you would know, isn't it about going as fast as you can, that you're feeling great, and you keep on adding, that you feel better and you feel a sense of achievement, whether you're doing it with a wearable. Some people are so inspired by that because they're always competing with themselves. Today I did 1,000 steps, tomorrow I did 1,500, or if you haven't been well. So I think that it's about making it, I mean, I can't answer that question, because some people will really transform quickly. And it's going to depend on how much you eat, and it's going to depend on all sorts of things on how walking transforms your body. But you certainly will start feeling more energy, and I think stronger, and kind of mentally a little more light than when you're doing nothing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. I think so often I see people, when they start a fitness program and they don't get the results that they want right away, they're apt to quit. So instead of focusing on, how quickly you're transforming, notice how you're feeling. And then I also rarely recommend that people set SMART goals. So something that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive. So I will walk Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and Sundays at 10 o'clock for half an hour. And generally the recommendation is about 150 minutes a week for like a comfortable pace, and more like 75. I really like to do a little bit of high intensity interval training and just sort of challenge my body. There's a lot of research around HIIT. They call it HIIT is helpful. But if you're really just starting out, walking, obviously talk to your doctor first, but walking is very safe, and you will start to see changes. I also like to really make it, again, measurable. So either a time, so I'm going to walk for half an hour, or I like steps personally, because steps are kind of fun and you can track it over time. And even like I was in Costco the other day, I always do like 2,000-3,000 steps walking around like big markets. That's a good point. Everything counts. So like if you're at work and you might like make it a challenge, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, really
using the stairs.
Yep.
Totally. so that you're getting fit. I think, what I often think about, and you've got your lovely guest Regina coming on next, who's going to talk about a far more physical activity than walking. But I think the point is that we want to be functionally fit as we get older, right? We want to be able to twist and turn and bend and do all kinds of things. So I think like making your walking practice, starting out with a little stretch maybe, and then adding to that program, so that, as you say, you want to do a little bit of HIIT exercise because that's good for you. Some people might want to be dancing in their bathrooms or the shower, because that's actually going to also give you a kind of whole body experience, like Optimal does. When you do our little workouts, you're getting a whole body experience. So you do want to be adding things to walking, but I think to start out, walking is a fantastic thing, and I think for everybody, right? If you can walk, you should try and walk more. I mean, that would be kind of the one thing I'd say. For those of us in cities with cars where we drive, in Europe, people walk a lot. I think if you live in Manhattan and work in Manhattan, you probably walk a lot. but a lot of us drive, we get in our cars and drive where we're going. So I think that try and walk more in your garden, walk more in your neighborhood, walk more on the weekends. You often will be quite surprised at how quickly you can walk somewhere where you always drive. So I think just adding more walking, adding more steps, and it doesn't always have to, we don't always have to be competitive with ourselves. I think that often puts people off. They don't really want to be competitive. For those of us that are competitive, it's quite nice to be improving our step count or whatever. But I think, if you set your step count at whether it's 10,000 a day, or I think the new research is around 7.5, 8 for midlifers in terms of longevity goals, work towards it. I have some days where I barely do 3,000 steps if I've had a busy day at the office. And I get a little bit horrified at it, but I think then the next day I make sure that I do more. I'm conscious of it from when I wake up in the morning. So I think that what we should do is think about movement not always as a challenge, but actually as something that we want to incorporate into our lifestyle and make it a lifelong habit as we get older. And so I would say to those of your listeners who are competitive, put your step counter on, do all those things, make your appointments, get going, challenge yourselves. But for those people that haven't done much, don't make it too hard, because when it's too hard and you don't make your goals, as you say, you stop. So actually get yourself a buddy to walk with, even if it is your furry friend, and just start and improve slowly. There's no rush unless you actually are going off to do the Appalachian Trail or the Camino, or you're sailing to the Caribbean and you need to get fit. And that really is what I would say to those people that are not already fit and are not competitive, is I think don't be put off doing it because it all sounds like too much too soon.
Yeah, make it enjoyable. And I always tell people to think outside the box. So again, parking further away from the shopping center, asking, do I really need to take the car? And also I've had a lot of clients, particularly that people are working at home now, can you do a meeting while you walk? Or even if you're face to face, can you do, we're so used to meeting for coffee, or when you meet that girlfriend, can you meet and walk instead of going out for cocktails? Or your spouse, can you guys go for a walk? And so, my man Ken and I were always taking walks and enjoying being outside. So any other thoughts about staying motivated? Actually, we have to take a break. So we'll get back, we'll talk about motivation. And then also we're going to bring on Regina, who's going to tell us all about sailing. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Rock Your Midlife. If you want to get in touch with me, it's themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. And again, check out theoptimal.me for the midlifer who wants to make their next chapter their best chapter. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to Rock Your Midlife. Hey, if you are enjoying the show, grab a girlfriend, let her know, and leave me a review. I would love to know what you think about the show. You can also reach out to me at themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. And I want to thank our sponsor, theoptimal.me. They are a proud sponsor of Rock Your Midlife. The Optimal.me is a membership website for the midlifer who wants to feel younger, stay active, independent, and energetic without pain or injury. And we've been talking to the founder of the Optimal.me, Liz Grantham. And before the break, we wanted to talk a little bit about motivation. So Liz, what's your one or two best tips for staying motivated with your walking program?
I walk to the place where I get my favorite coffee. That's my number one motivation for walking. Is en route, we stop at my favorite coffee spot. Luckily I have a few, so depending on how far we're walking. But if I'm not going to stop for coffee or have my delicious coffee at the end, I'm not that motivated. My second biggest motivator is that it's a real stress reliever for me, and walking with a friend is, having that time out for me. I'm exercising and I'm working on my kind of stress levels, and I'm out in nature and I'm giving myself a real dopamine kick, and I know I'm going to feel better at the end. That is my second most important motivator. And I think for me, the third one is that if I can know that I'm going to walk somewhere where it's visually pleasing, I don't want to walk somewhere that's not pretty. And that doesn't mean not in a suburb, but I just want to walk where I am going to be in nature and I am going to see green trees and plants and things, because that is very good for me emotionally. So I think that, finding what that kind of place is for oneself is important. And then for me comes the fitness level and the fact that, I'm clocking up towards my 150 minutes a week or whatever I'm doing. Those are all secondary goals for me. But my first three are more about feeling well and feeling great than about a fitness level or how many steps I'm taking or, what it's doing for I know it's good for me and I can feel that it's good for me. So when I'm going for when coffee's my end goal, when I've got a friend that I can talk to, or, I'm in the women's group where I'm meeting new people and having different conversations, and then being out and really getting rid of stress are my three biggest motivations.
Yeah, it's so great. It's not because you're beating your body up because you don't love your body. It's just such a great way to feel good. So I want to introduce our next guest and have her ask you a question. And I have a question if you're listening. Have you ever dreamt about casting off the lines on your life and starting afresh? I know I have, and I've done that. How much would you be willing to give up to follow your hearts? Well, our next guest has done exactly that. She is Regina Petromeyer, and she was born and raised in Switzerland and worked as a travel agent for several years. Her curiosity was piqued by coordinating trips for her clients to all corners of the globe. And eventually, she packed her own bags, adopted a globe-trotting lifestyle. Regina has adventured across all the continents, enjoys meeting people and trying new foods, providing she can distinguish what's on her plate. And she has lived and worked in Antigua, in the Caribbean, the US, New Zealand, and currently calls tropical Cairns, Australia, her home. She has no kids, she's unmarried, and cherishes the freedom that her life offers her. Alongside her love of exploring the world, she is equally curious and passionate about her inner journey and evolution. When she's not writing, I have to say her writing is beautiful. She helps people to become empowered, to embrace courage and follow their dreams. And her newest book and first book is a memoir. It's called Change of Course. I have been reading it. It is delightful and really, you're a beautiful writer. Well, welcome to Rock Your Midlife, Regina. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Ellen. It's a pleasure.
And for getting up. Regina got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to join us. So that was very sweet of you. So before we dig into your story, do you have a question for Liz?
Well, yes, I'm actually curious because I am a bit of a walker myself, and I have done some long distance walks. And my question is, heading, into midlife, is there something in particular I need to know about appropriate footwear?
Well, I mean, we have a wonderful article on our site that actually talks to that, about making sure that your footwear is appropriate for you. And I would say for anybody that is going to go on a long walk or prepare for a long walk, actually going and consulting with a really good shoe specialist in terms of finding the right fit for the width of your foot. They being advised on how much space you need in your shoes so that you're not going to batter your toes. I think for a long distance walk, to actually really almost even be talking to a podiatrist up front as you're starting to plan about, just them having a look to see that you're going to be fine, that you're not going to bruise your heels in your shoes, because, that can be an absolutely awful thing when you have bad shoes on. And then if you're doing a long walk, best you walk your shoes in before you head out. And I do think that getting advice on good shoes is absolutely key. From a specialist, from people and there are wonderful professionals all around, and there's such a choice of shoes, right? They choose shoes for narrow feet, broader feet, feet with bunions, feet with, insteps built up. So, I mean, I would just say that you definitely don't want to be hurting your feet while you walk.
That's such a great question. I know I don't have the greatest feet in the world. I've been really enjoying the barefoot walking shoes. I don't know if you've tried those, but there's a number of companies that really, I like to have shoes that let my feet breathe. I've no more high heels for me. It's all, love sandals in the summer, things that you want support. But also I just find the human foot can develop and grow its own musculature. But sometimes you have to do this balance between too much support, not a lot of support, just protection. So I know I like to wear a lot of different footwear, but you might want to check out some of those shoes that are minimalist because they're pretty cool.
Depending on the surface you're going to walk on.
Yeah, definitely. So let's switching gears to sailing. I guess my first question, I'm so curious, how the heck did you get the courage and clarity to just be like, I'm going to start reading the book and just like, I'm just going to sign up and be a crew somewhere and go sail the world. How did you abandon security and comfort and just follow your dream?
Well, I guess they're two separate things. So the courage for me was quite a step-by-step process. So I had to learn skills. I educated myself on anything to do with sailing. I read books. And of course, I had to make sure I had some money. And I think I look at those things as the base of courage, that allowed me to then step out. The clarity, I think, well, in my case, I was actually looking for clarity for my life. And but the clarity to actually go sailing, I think that came more from sort of that pinch, of being stuck and not having a purpose. And I just knew that I actually had to do something different. I couldn't continue. I knew at the time there was something underlying that was giving me, some pain. And I guess that was more the driver actually toward the adventure.
I love that. And I think it's at such an important point too, that you have to make sure that you have resources. I talk to and coach so many women, and I'm not like, quit your job, leave. And a lot of them, can't just jump on a boat and do that, but make sure that you've got the resources and the backing that you need. But it is at some point you have to kind of take that leap. Did you have fears and doubts as you were kind of thinking about doing this?
Lots, of course, a lot. I think whenever you step out of a comfort zone, doubt's going to be your best friend. And I think sometimes we have to listen to doubt, especially if you step on a stranger's sailing boat. You have to listen to your gut feeling. If your gut feeling tells you this is not a safe situation or something just feels off, you need to get off. So I think, yes, of course, I had a lot of doubt, but I think for me, the underlying driver was that I wanted the adventure. I wanted to explore. I wanted to experience something different.
Yeah, that is so powerful. I think in midlife, we get so dug in because we've got, all of the security, and the brain isn't interested in us being happy or joyful. It just wants to keep us safe. So although sailing the world is incredibly exciting and joyful and just incredible adventure, I think that part of our brain that says, no, stay small, stay safe, jumps in there a lot. And we have to both listen to our gut, as you were saying, and at the same time, step outside our comfort zone. But you don't need to go on a sailing ship to do it. There are many ways to do that. So let's talk about how do you get, what is empowerment to you and how do you develop it? Someone's listening going, gosh, I don't even know. How do I become empowered and develop it? And what is that?
Well, for me, empowerment is really the ability to make my own decisions and then follow through with them. I think I had this one really powerful moment in my story where I was in Switzerland and my long-term relationship had just broken up. And for the first time in my life, from when I left home and entered the relationship, I felt like I was completely free and I was untethered. I didn't have a home. All I had was the backpack on my back. But it was also when I realized that I actually have responsibility toward myself. And I think that's sort of the balance that we have to juggle, that freedom comes with the responsibility also to look after ourselves. And then the other how I build empowerment is basically, for me, again, it's about knowledge, you know, sort of getting skilled, build my resilience, which I mean, don't be afraid of failing, and trust yourself, you know, go and give it a shot. And if it doesn't work out, you know, so what, try again.
Yeah, that is great. It's like, you know, having the knowledge, the experience, and, you know, maybe not having to go as extreme as you did, but it must have been this incredible balance between sort of freedom, but also fear about, can I really do this thing, like getting ready to really jump off the cliff. So I'm curious, where does sailing come in? So, you know, obviously your book, Change of Course, is about your sailing adventures, but you're from Switzerland, which is a landlocked country. So how the heck did you get this incredible desire to sail?
I stepped my feet on a yacht the very first time when I was about 10 years old. My parents had divorced and my dad bought a sailing yacht. So whenever I visited him, you know, we would go out on the lake in Switzerland. And I still remember this really vividly, you know, and it was just magic to be out on the boat on the lake. And, you know, you mentioned before the joy of being on a boat. And for me, it's usually, you know, the twinkling of the sunlight as it hits the water's surface. And I just think it's just such a beautiful dance of light. So that's what I remember from being a 10-year-old girl. And then it sort of disappeared into the background. I'd always kind of wanted to travel by boat, but my long-term partner got seasick, so it was never an option. And that's why when we were sort of at a point where our relationship had been floundering, where we decided we needed some time apart, and I guess he had a really good job at the time, I was unemployed, and so the decision was made, all right, you know what, go and fulfill your sailing dream, and I don't have to get sick whilst you do it.
Yeah, and there is something that I know, that there's this magical moment when the sails are set, the wind is taking you, just moving just with the wind and the quiet and the peace and just the, you know, I think find sailing is very empowerment. I was overwhelmed when I went sailing a couple of weeks ago because I had a love-hate relationship with it as a kid. I grew up and my parents made me go on the boat because I was a little kid and I had to go with them. They sailed every single weekend. So I didn't love being with them, but I went to sailing camp for years. And it was just as an adult, really appreciated being able to move, when, especially in this day and age where, you know, gas is so expensive and, you know, engines are so noisy, that sense of, like you said, when everything's perfect and your sails are set and you're hitting your destination, it is an incredible, it's like flying.
It's amazing. I absolutely love it.
So I think it's nicer than flying because you're out, you know, you're kind of in the elements as opposed to, you know, in the metal of a plane. So I mean, a boat and being on the water is sort of, I think, almost more freedom, you know, because you're sort of much closer to the elements.
Yeah, it is an amazing feeling. So in your story, you joined several sailing boats as a crew. So can you tell us a little bit about how people can be a crew, or what that experience was like for you? And also that, you know, again, as you alluded to, like just getting on a boat with a bunch of strangers, and how you kind of decided like where to go and how people could do it. If someone's listening saying, yeah, I'm a single, I'm 50, I'm looking to do something crazy and fun. And how do you go about joining a crew?
Well, for me, it was really interesting how I learned about it. And it was actually by reading a book. You know, I had no idea that that was even an option. So when I was reading that book, it was Lionheart at the time. My mind was blown, and I immediately went onto the website and I looked up crewing websites. So there's, you know, many different crewing websites. Find a Crew is probably one of the biggest ones these days. I suggest go on there, you know, put a profile up, make sure, you know, you make it look not professional, that's the wrong word to use, but, you know, like use your common sense when you put up a profile there, because you don't want to attract the wrong kind of people. So for me, when I went about actually crewing, what I did is I made sure I had email contact, and then we did, Skype or Zoom meetings, and we would actually discuss the plans. We would discuss when I would get on the boat, who else is on the boat, where were they from. So you have to do a little bit of a check, I suppose. And it's hard to do a background check because you don't know the people. So don't feel afraid also to ask for references. If you're really like I did, I flew halfway around the world. You might want to know a little bit more about the people that you're about to join. And then for me, it really was about getting there and, settling in on the boat. Give yourself, a few days. And really, if it feels wrong, step off. There's no obligation. You should not go on a boat trip with someone that you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah, it was nice that you had some initial practice. And I have to say, I love that you stood up to the owner of the boat. He called you a bitch and you were like, you can't call me that. I love that you were empowered and you sort of really stood your ground and demanded respect.
Look, I have a bit of a temper. And if you push the wrong buttons, you'll get the better of it.
Yeah, it really is a good read. So tell us about what was the most memorable moment that you talk about in the book and why?
For me, the most memorable moment is interesting because when you did the intro, I was like, oh my God, you're talking about my most memorable moment. And it was on my first transatlantic passage, right? And we had atrocious conditions. It was really, really rough. And we had massive tall waves and big rolling swell was lifting up the boat. Sometimes we'd be in a trough of a wave and we wouldn't see either side of the boat. And when you were at the top, all you could see was these gray waves all to the horizon, no other boat. It was kind of an angry, looking sky and sea. And anyway, I was up for my day watch, which was 4 hours. And on a whim, I sort of decided I would like to steer the boat. So I asked the skipper if I could do that. And to my surprise, he agreed. And I asked him to play Pink Floyd at full blast. And, we closed the door to down below. So I was completely by myself. And I had this 50-foot yacht and, I would surf down waves. And at the trough, I had to adjust the course and we would gradually climb our way up the face of the next oncoming wave. Waves would smash into the bow and, I would be completely drenched with the spray. But what really surprised me even then was, it was cold. I was soaked. My muscles were tired, but I felt so thrilled and excited at the time because I guess I was really present in the moment, and that's joy. I was just absolutely mesmerized by this natural spectacle that was unfolding. And I wasn't even afraid. It was the waves, the boat, and myself. And it was amazing. It's really one of my most treasured memories to this day.
And was that when you were going from Antigua to Australia?
No. So that trip actually didn't happen. So that was an interesting story. So I crewed on the first boat and we got on and we were working on that particular yacht for several weeks to get it ready for the trip. But then, of course, when you spend a lot of time with a few people in close confines, tensions can ensue. And so 2 of the crew ended up leaving the boat shortly before we were meant to depart. And the trip fell apart. And that's how I also ended up stranded in Antigua for a while.
Amazing. Well, we only have a few minutes left. I know Liz is definitely got questions for you. So Liz, do you have a question for Regina?
Yeah, I mean, I like much gentler sailing than what you went through. Listening to your story, I was like, oh my word, I'm not sure that I would cope by myself, steering a boat through a storm. I like a sort of slightly gentler version of sailing where the shore is not that far. So tell me about your, I mean, obviously it takes incredible mental strength to sail and be out on a boat. I think that we can take that to the bank, that you are incredibly emotionally strong. But how did you, from a physical perspective, to be doing that kind of work requires a real level of strength and fitness. So I'm sure you weren't that prepared when you got on the boat. How did you manage your way through that as time went on?
Well, interestingly enough, the bigger boat you get on, the less work there is, actually. And when you do a passage, that's it. When you do a long passage, you hoist the sails, and then in some occasions you leave them for a week, and you might do minor adjustments. So fitness in that sense, like to do the actual physical sailing, isn't that big. What made me fit was the preparation on the first boat, really working. We had to sew, and there was a lot of physical preparation to do. And then the other part during a passage, the boat is always moving. So when you're talking about walking and adjusting to ground, that's exactly the same on a boat, and it doesn't stop. It's 24 hours a day. So one thing I noticed, I get super hungry on a boat. And I think that's the reason, because all day, even at night, sometimes you have to physically hold on to the bed if it's moving that much.
And to keep your balance, right? I'm sure that your core must have been extraordinarily strong after, doing that for 10 days or 3 weeks, or however long it took you, to always be keeping your balance.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So for everyone who's going to chase after this dream, best that they work on their balance before they head out.
Yeah, go to the Optimal Me, work on your balance, work on your strength. I know you were saying when you first on, you got all kinds of blisters from the pulling in the sheets and the winches and all of that. So incredible story. So I want to encourage listeners, grab the book. It is called Change of Course by Regina Petra-Meyer. And I think your website is also reginapetrameyer.com.
Yes, that's correct.
And it is a great book. I am starting it. I'm about a third of the way through. Really fascinating. And please do check out theoptimal.me. I am enjoying it. It's a fantastic site wherever you are, whether you have been a jock your whole life and are training for a marathon, or you are just getting started with fitness. You will find amazing classes as well as just great articles. And your first 30 days are absolutely free. They actually have a whole program that will look at your fitness level and tell you exactly what to do. So it's super fun, easy to use. Liz, thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure to speak with you again. And Regina, thank you so much. And thank you all of you for listening. We will be back next week with another episode of Rock Your Midlife. If you want to get in touch with me, just head on over to themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. And if you are enjoying the show, please leave me a review. I would love to know what you think and tell your friends. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're clear. Good job, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Regina, how lovely to meet you.
Yeah, it was really interesting to listen